Hey, my name is Hazen, and in this video, I'm going to share how I make my collage posters. I like to make collages because they allow me to combine a bit of everything that I love, like graphic design, photography, simple shapes, abstract art, and the warmth of analog mediums. And it's because of this that I feel like collage is the perfect way for me to express myself artistically and to have fun. Because to be honest, this is the most fun I've had making anything in a while. As I said earlier, I will obviously be showing you how I make my collages, but this isn't a step-by-step how-to tutorial video. This is meant to be more of a general overview of my process. I'll talk about how I approach ideas in photos, and then afterwards, I'll get into my collage process. There's a lot to cover here, but the video is divided up into chapters for your convenience. So let's get started on ideas and photos. I'll go into a collage with a couple of ideas to start with and build off of. The ideas usually are not flashy or mind-blowing at all. They're all rather mundane, personal things that I think about on the daily, like a word, a phrase, a quote, a piece of media I've consumed, or even just how I've been feeling lately. The ideas could also be technical things specific to the collage, like if there's a certain pattern or technique I want to try out, or maybe I want to use a certain color or texture, stuff like that. I don't wait around for those flashy or big brain ideas, because they only really come around every once in a while. I'm not some ideas factory, I'm not an art savant of any kind. I'm literally just a normal dude. And I'm not even trying to make anything impressive here. I'm just trying to feel something again. I consider photos and images to be ideas on their own, and they add a different dynamic into the mix. Being somewhat of a photography enthusiast myself, sometimes I'll use photos I've taken, but these days I use royalty-free images most of the time. It's much easier this way for sure, and although I would prefer to use my own stuff, I'm just too lazy to go out and shoot. So instead of doing that, every once in a while, I just sit here and scroll through free-to-use, royalty-free photo sites like Unsplash or Pexels. I typically try to look for photos that have bold structures, shapes, or lines. Abstract images or things that have been made to look abstract are great to use for backgrounds and textures. I'll also use photos with clearly defined subjects like flowers or portraits, or really anything from nature, architecture, etc. I tend to download anything that catches my eye, even if I don't know how I'd use it in the moment. It's always good to have the photos available to use just in case. The collage starts in Illustrator and ends in Photoshop. Illustrator is used to build the overall composition, and the details, textures, and effects are applied in Photoshop. Sometimes I will change the composition a bit in Photoshop, but overall it stays largely the same from Illustrator. And you definitely don't need to use Illustrator just to build a composition. Photoshop will work just fine. It's just Illustrator is my comfort program, and I find it easier to build shapes and handle typography inside of it. Composition is probably the most important thing to me, not just in my collages, but for everything that I make. The goal here is to, of course, make a banger composition. But for collages in particular, I'm looking to combine photos, typography, color, texture, and other visual elements in a way that complements the overall composition and weaves in personal aspects of myself, like my ideas, my thoughts, my feelings, and my aesthetic preferences. Now, this is easier said than done, which is why I like to break the composition down into three main layers. The first layer is the base foundation that I build with shapes. The next layer is the secondary foundation that is made with photos and or images. And the last layer is made up by typography, texture, color, and other visual elements. I know this is a lot already, but let me walk y'all through it. I start the base foundation by laying down shapes in Illustrator, mostly with squares and rectangles, though sometimes I'll distort and slice them up a bit. After I have a few of these shapes down, I'll start throwing in some photos, which starts the secondary foundation. I often clip these into squares and rectangles and play around with them to see how they complement the base foundation. As I keep iterating and progressing on both the base and secondary foundations, I'll start to add in the typography and smaller visual elements like lines, scribbles, small shapes, and anything else that's ornamental for the last layer. I'll play around with color a bit, but I usually don't finalize it until I'm in Photoshop. And after many iterations, Control Z's, and moments of questioning my choices, once I reach a composition that's like 80 to 90% there, I'll go ahead and export my Illustrator file as a Photoshop file and get started on the next half of the process. Probably after a short break. First thing I do when opening the exported Photoshop file is layer prep. Yes, I actually do this, at least in the beginning anyway. I rename layers, I move them around, I group them, I color code them, anything that'll make my job easier, because sometimes I'm working with a lot of them and by the end of it, everything gets scrambled all over the place. So I try my best to keep things organized. After that, I like to add a texture that goes on top of everything. My favorite one to use is actually an accidental film photo of mine that I've made into a texture, which you can download and use for free. It has some pretty sweet film grain in it, and there will be two versions of it, one with some light leaks and one without. So if you're interested, the link to download these will be in the description below. Most of the effects and details stuff that I do is applying textures, edge distressing, and paper tears. The assets and tools that I'm using are from Bracken Design, and look, I'm not sponsored or anything, but I've had such a good experience using these. The tools make it so easy to apply that analog warmth that I'm looking for. To distress the edges of the vector shapes, I use this action from the printed textures pack that adds a little bit of imperfection to those sharp edges. For paper tears, I use the brushes from the torn paper pack. I just put on a layer mask and brush away what I want to look torn. And for distressing type, I've been using the trash type layer styles. I go through and pick the effect that I'm feeling the most, and there's a lot of really cool and gritty layer styles to pick from. And finally, after applying the textures, the details, and the effects, that's when I'll lock in colors. There's really no method here. I just pick whatever colors based on vibes. And that's pretty much it. I just keep working on everything until I feel the collage is done. If there's one thing that I'd like to emphasize, it's that the process is never quite as linear or straightforward as I'd like it to be. I don't always know what to do all the time. I get stuck on things often. And ideas that I think are going to be bangers turn out to be kind of mid sometimes. I've learned it's best to be patient, to take breaks if I need to, and everything will eventually work out. If you've made it all the way to the end of this video, thank you so much. This has been a long time in the making, and man, my brain is so empty right now, but if nothing else, I just hope that you guys found this helpful. If not, then oh shit. If you haven't already, feel free to download and try out my favorite texture. There's a link for that down below. And if you end up using it, please tag me on socials because I would love to see what you guys make. Anyways, that's pretty much it. Thank you guys again for watching. I really, really appreciate it. And see you next time.